well say what you got to say before you're dead.
And I encourage you to watch it once, twice, 3 times. I love when politicians
Let me tell you something. You all think me stupid, you know.
If you take offense to it personally, that's your business.
And it's the number one show.
That's show.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Citizens Review. We have a special show this week. I have with me the parliamentarians from the Youth in Parliament segment that was shown on Channel 40 on Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. And it was also live on television some date I don't remember during the day, where my friend, who you'll see in a second, Camille Menz, walked down Parliament Square as the Youth Governor General in her blue dress and her nice thing on her hair, and introduced the Youth Parliament. And they spoke on many different issues. They spoke on the youth policy, which is most important to them, that we actually have some sort of legal framework that ties the government to actually responding to the concerns of young people. So I said, well, why not have these young people on Citizens Review to talk about issues, to talk about challenges, to talk about any sort of thing that they think is interesting in the Bahamas. And so they're here, and we're going to talk, and we're going to have a good time. And we've already been rowing before we brought it to the actual camera and everything. We already been talking a little bit. Just quickly introduce yourselves. Tell people who you are and what school you're from and what school you're going to, or which school you're in, or whatever. Let's start with you, Paige.
My name is Gia Paige Souls. I'm a former grade 11 student of St. Andrews, and in August, at the end of the month, I'll be attending Lee Po Chun United World College of Hong Kong.
I get excited every time you say that. Lee Po Chun, United College of Hong Kong. I saw a TED video, and I always advise people to go to TED.com and watch a TED video every day, at least one. I'm dead serious. It's like 20 minutes of life-changing experience. But I saw a TED video where there was an analysis on students from the Eastern countries coming to Western countries going to college, and students from Western countries going to Eastern colleges. And there is a huge number of people from China, Thailand, Malaysia going to colleges in the West to gather information as to how the West thinks. Mm-hmm. But there's very, very low numbers of people going from the West to the East, when in fact we know that the largest middle class and all of the economies, the biggest economies in the world will be in the East in the next 40 years. So that's an issue. But it's good that you are a Bahamian that is going to Lee Po Chun.
Yes.
United World College, Hong Kong. Camille Menz.
Hi, my name is Camille Menz. I am a soon-to-be 12th grader at St. John's College.
Okay. And as we said off camera, do you feel like your class is going to manage to have a graduation?
Of course.
Yeah? Okay. I have to ask these things. I think people think off camera are different than on camera, and not really. Sir, introduce yourself with your distinguished name.
Yes, my name is Stanton Charlton, and I am going into grade 12 at Kingsway Academy.
Yes. Okay.
My name is Wesley Strock Jr. Just graduated from Charles W. Sanders as head boy, and now I'm at the Florida Memorial University studying mechanical engineering.
Okay. Yes, sir?
My name is Duran Sanders. I am a current student at Florida Memorial University, and my major is now marketing.
Have you gotten any of the historically black college and university experience yet?
Yes, I have.
And what do you think?
To be at a historically black college, it is very nice.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
The feeling to know that you're a part of that,
Mm-hmm.
to learn about where they came from and the fight they went through, because,
Yeah.
Florida Memorial has a very unique history that I'm very proud of. I am glad to be a part of it and experience it. So
a lot of Bahamian involvement.
Yes.
Yeah.
The president of the Senate, Sharon Wilson, she's an alumni of Florida Memorial University.
Oh, wow. Okay. Good
So-
stuff. All right. I went
good
to
to
Howard University, which is in Washington, D.C., the mother of historically black colleges and universities. We call it the Mecca. Very unchristian name that it has. That'll be funny in 2 seconds when we get back to this Christian row we haven't. But I think it's important that Bahamians, because Bahamians have an aversion to black colleges. They go, oh, you ain't need to go around them black people. And I think it's important to know that, one, when you go to college, you're not an adult yet. You're sort of still learning. And the beauty of black colleges is that you have black professors, some of the brightest and smartest black people in the world, to sort of feel comfortable with as aunts and uncles, and they take you in. And I don't remember at Howard anybody not having a place to go for Thanksgiving, because your friend's mother either thinks that you're her child, or one of your professors thinks that you're their child, or somebody who works in the administration building is like, oh, this is my baby, and they take you with them. So there's a sort of a comfort that you experience. But the other thing is that there is a definition of diversity that is problematic. That the historically white colleges, in their usual fashion, have advanced. That if you go to college with 15% Asians and 25% blacks and 35% whites and 35% Indians and 20% this, and so then you have diversity, but they are all from New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, California. You know, they're all from the same place. Whereas where I go to Howard University, we may be all black, but I'm a Bahamian. One of my best friends was Jamaican. Someone else was Bayesian. The other person was from London. One is from Malaysia. The next one is from California. One is from Peru. And that is diversity. But when you reduce diversity to whether we look different, it becomes a very strange little idea. And I don't think a lot of people get that, so I thought it was important to say that. But before we went to turning on the camera, we were having this debate where we were talking about the Bahamas having an abiding respect for Christian values. That's in our preamble to the Constitution. Does that make sense? Should we have that in there? That's my question. And my question is based on the idea that everybody talks about equality and equal rights and equal access and equal justice for all. And the challenge with having the Christian nation designation is that if I'm of a different opinion, I could be legally marginalized. What's the discussion? Let's talk about it some more. Mr. Strapp, you had some very strong opinions on that. Don't mind the cameraman. Let's just talk. Let's talk. What do you think? Anybody jump in? Anybody?
What we talked about was basically, it was trailing off of homosexuality and gay marriage.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
And we were trying to figure out, as Gia said, there seems to be a contradiction between allowing gay men to be homosexual and have sex with one another,
Yeah.
but not marry.
Yeah.
And as a Christian nation, when you believe in abstinence and you're supposed to preach abstinence and not approve premarital sex, why is it that they can have sex but they can't be married?
Should it be against the law to have sex before you're married? In keeping with Christian values, of course.
That's where I would draw the line. I don't believe that religion should be any part of a legal document. I think that Christian law and the law of the land should be kept separate.
Okay, so you're saying that Christian values, an abiding respect for Christian values should be taken out of the Constitution?
Yes.
What does the
Okay.
rule of law part mean? Because they come one after the other.
Well,
An abiding respect for Christian values and
Yeah.
rule of law.
But I mean, obviously they would influence each other. So if you say an abiding respect for Christian values, one would expect that would influence your rule of law. So it's not an odd question to outlaw sex before marriage, because that is part of what Christian values absolutely positively ask for. So it's not, but that seems like a strange question to y'all. That seems like, I mean, it's a crazy question for me, because I've gone to jail a long time. So the question is, and me and plenty other people, me and plenty grandmothers who ain't never been married but have 10 children, me and plenty, so this is an unusual story to us. Me and plenty mothers who have 3 different children for 4 different men and all types of stuff. So should we have Christian values in the Constitution? That's my core question. And if we keep it, do we think that it's equal and fair?
If we put it there and if it's there, I think we should abide by it. But if it's there and we don't abide by it, I don't think it should be there because it don't make no sense. You have something in place when you're not going to follow it. And I think that if what's the second part of the question? Sorry, that you asked.
Is it equal and fair to keep it there? Is it fair to other people? Fair to people who may not be Christian? Is it fair to people who may be Christians but don't subscribe to certain parts of Christianity? Lord knows that we have 25 different genres of Christianity here. The Baptist, the new missionary Baptist, the this kind of Baptist. It's about 7 Baptists. Then there's Anglican, then there's Methodist, then there's Wesley Methodist, and then the United Methodist, and then
I
Yeah.
think that it shouldn't be taken out because it governs us in a way that if we were to take it out, people would feel more freedom.
Freedom to
Do
what?
you think they should not feel freedom?
Yes, they should feel freedom, but if you look at it, that this Christian nation, it governs us.
Yeah.
In the sense that we may not see it, but like it governs us because the United States, I'm not saying, let's look at them.
Yeah.
Some, they cannot pray and
In schools. to
Yeah,
pray.
right.
worship and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
You could have moments of silence, but not prayer.
Yeah, so just imagine,
Yeah.
if we were to take out that, just imagine, hey, next 5 years,
We become a permissive society.
yes.
But
Did
my question is, since you mentioned freedom now, freedom, if you are going to say that by law you are mandated by the Constitution to abide by Christian values, so you're saying that if you do not practice abstinence for whatever reason, you should be penalized by law. Is that really freedom?
I didn't say that. I said that
said-
it should stay as it is now.
You said, sir, that it should stay as it is, which means that you agree with it as is, which means you don't want anything to change. And as the Constitution states, we must abide by Christian values. And if you're going to take action on the Constitution now, you are saying that you are endorsing us as Bahamian citizens. If we are to practice abstinence, then we should be legally held. That should be legally held against us.
Okay.
Is that what you're saying?
I have a question for you. You attend school, right? Do you abide every rule in your
I
school?
try my best.
Okay. Do you think Bahamians try their best?
Yes, because how many Bahamians do you hear professing, oh, I as a Christian, it's a Christian nation. That's a common rhetoric in this country. So shouldn't you mandate by law that you're saying that mandated by law, abstinence should be legally penalized?
What about adultery? Adultery is actually in the 10 Commandments. That's like the big one.
Yeah.
That's the big one. All right, so we should make adultery illegal.
If adultery is supposed to be illegal, do you know how many Bahamians will be in prison right now? prison done overcrowded now.
Yeah. So in a de facto sense, we have already separated the values from the law then. And so should we further do that? Should we further advocate in order to protect people's rights and privileges? Because it is a right or a privilege to be able to opt out. So I could be adulterous with my wife because I opt out of that part of Christianity, and the law doesn't mandate that I opt in. The law doesn't mandate that I still be involved in the 10 Commandments by law. It's just that the Constitution say that that's cute, so every time we feel like using that, we can use it. But, I mean, literally, because in my opinion, if it is going to be a country run by Christian values, the 10 Commandments got to be in the law someplace.
Yes.
I mean, the basics. Just give me the 10 Commandments. The mission and vision of the country got to be the Beatitudes, and then we can work from there. And that is simply not what's happening here.
No, it's not.
So you're trying to say that at this point, if we decide to update the Constitution, it's either that we change all the laws that we have to match up to Christian values, or we completely take it out.
No, I'm asking, what do you think? I'm asking, do you think that if we're going to frame ourselves in constitutional reform as a country with Christian values, should we take that further? Should we go further and say, listen, an adultery is against the law because that's the 10th commandment, and stealing, we can punish that a little more because that's the 10th commandment? You know, should we go further with it, or should we stop and say, listen, this ain't really reasonable. I mean, you know, we getting 50% of the marriages ending in divorce, and the justification is often adultery. So if we had to lock up all them people, this would be problematic. And as a result of that, if we can't include a 10 commandment in our basic laws, then perhaps we should back up off this Christian value thing and just sort of have Christians with values, but manage citizens in a realistic way.
I have a question. So if we was to take out this Christian preamble, that you say, in the Constitution, how would this country?
I don't think
Can
it would
you-
change.
Because I
Will be
want to
no
ask
change?
now,
No, I don't.
it seems as though you said, is it realistic to punish someone for what is said in the Bible? So it's, I know it's not the intention for it to come across that way, but it's almost as though, come on now, being Christian ain't what's happening today.
Yeah.
Being arrested for stealing and, you know, not liking your wife anymore because she
I mean, we
get
talk
old or
regularly
she get fat, or
about
these
legalizing
different things.
marijuana.
Yeah, so it's like saying Christian is old and it ain't up to date and it ain't up to par with what's happening now, so let's just throw it off to the side.
Yeah.
And so that would lead to, in the next 20 years, the Bahamas becoming one of those societies where anything is
It's-
possible.
But is it
Anything.
already happening?
It's
is the
happening now,
question.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah,
under a limit.
so-
How
and
is it
so
under
the
a
question
limit?
is-
Yeah, how is it under limit?
No, the question is then, since it's already happening, do you make things tighter and do you restrain them by saying, hey, Christian values has to be a very big part in our Constitution and what we abide by, and then you change the law?
Restriction breeds criminality.
Restriction breeds criminality.
Like strict
Oh,
parents,
More
make
laws?
sneaky children.
Exciting.
More laws, more rebellion.
More laws, more
History has
rebellion.
proven this fact to be true time and time again.
So throw
Drug
away the law so
prohibition.
that
Yeah,
we
just
know
throw
that-
away-
Alcohol
just be
prohibition.
No, I'm saying enforce the laws you already have.
So,
Don't
Yeah.
so,
make more.
For right,
so
so
this
why
is a-
take
Somehow,
out
by applying the Christian
Christian-
values
That's
to
not
them,
a. That's so.
unrealistic.
This is the moment, though. This is the moment. I just have to point this out. And I need more from you, Paige. I am from you. But this is the moment. So, this is what old people go through all the time. Old people are like, you know, I grew up when we used to go and we used to have to walk from Fox Hill all the way to Government High. My daddy used to tell me all these stories, but I used to
And
ride
if you
his
ain't say
bike.
hi to Miss
And
Smith
if
by the
you
time you
ain't
get
this,
home, you
this,
get
that,
beaten.
Yeah.
I think
and
we've
this,
all
that,
had
and
that
the
same
next
thing.
thing.
Yes.
How do we manage the changes? That's what we're talking about here. So if we throw out the baby with the bathwater? Do we go all the way or some way? Do we acknowledge that some things are different and move with the practicality? Or do we just say, listen, we're going right back to the basics? Because please bear in mind that there is no bishop of any high status in this country that would advocate that adultery be against the law. I don't know none.
It's not a matter of just getting back to basics and leaving it there.
Yeah.
It's a matter of somehow finding the in-between to get back to basics, but to be more modern, to be
Okay.
more
Yeah.
realistic in
So-
all aspects. So
so
that's
that's
even
like
if
updating
you
the Constitution.
introduce the economy. You have to get back to basics, but
Found
include
your
some sort of
foundations.
modern aspect to it.
So this is like,
found your
like
foundation.
we understand what the Bible says about sex before marriage, but we can pass out some condoms anyway, just in case
To make
you
sure.
may be doing something. That's like the middle ground. Is that where we at?
I don't feel like it's so much gray as we're making. I think it's black or white. I think if you preach it as black and white, then you'll gain those results. I don't think you should say we're the Christian nation and then once again, like you said, hand out the condoms. I think you need to be distinct. You need to be black and white and not gray. You can't have that middle ground because then I feel like more problems will arise if you have the middle ground. So you're either going to be the
Yes.
Christian nation with all the commandments in the Constitution
And the
or
laws
you're not.
abiding by those.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or not, yeah.
And what does not look like? What does not look like?
For some, not looks like
Not
us
being-
becoming, like I say over and over, a permissive society.
Do
It
you
looks
think
like
that
us
that's so?
becoming just one of those nations where Homosexuality is good. Weed is good. Everything is legal.
That's
Okay.
a bit of a
But is
generalization.
homosexuality
Yeah.
weed bad? I just
No,
asked
I'm
it.
just saying it. Just those things that were once illegal now become legal.
Like alcohol.
Yeah. Oh, just make everything legal.
You don't have to make
You don't
it
have to make
everything.
everything legal.
Legal.
You will still have your.
You know,
You will still.
I tell y'all, old people is going through this all the time. The young children, they want us to go and do all these things, and then this is we used to. It's just constant struggle. So I like to
Yeah.
hear young people struggle with these changes. So should we say, okay, there are a lot of young black men being arrested every day with marijuana, and we cannot any longer prove that it has any worse effects than cigarettes or alcohol. Do we legalize, or is that too much? Have we gone too far?
I think legalizing it, if you have done the analysis and you see that it's no more harmful, then you might as well legalize it.
Yeah.
Because as it stands, it's still going to be used and abused if it's illegal. And studies have been confirmed to show that even though it might be a momentary increase in the usage, over time that will decrease to even before it was when it was illegal. So if you want it to decrease, then you need to acknowledge that it is not any more harmful than alcohol or cigarettes. And then
Is that moving too far away from our values, though? Is it?
do you see anything in the Bible that says, oh, don't legalize marijuana? Please cite your scripture. I'd love to know.
What I just wanted to say is, this it's there now, but people still don't abide by it.
Yeah.
So you must just take it out because it draws me back to the point where Wesley made with the referendum.
Yeah.
They vote no, but still the number shops and they're still open.
Yeah.
Island Luck just built a 2-story building next to on Kamaica Road.
Yeah.
So they are not following the Constitution
Yeah.
when it comes to the Christian values. So
Not
if
to
it's
mention that our whole economy is based on the hotel now that has the largest Caribbean casino.
Exactly.
And the hotel coming that building the next
it's gonna be even bigger.
Yeah.
So I think it's just you must just take it out and enforce, like Sandra said, enforce the laws you have and see how it goes from there. Because right now they're not abiding by it, no one's following it, so it's just blind
Yeah.
to them. So
So Paige, this is the black and white you're talking about. This is where you say, listen, if you're going with it, go with it. If you're not, let's just become more practical in our approach.
Yes, but I feel like I've heard amongst you guys, I've heard you say, oh, it's not working now, you might as well take it out. But I feel as if you need to be careful with what you say with that because that teaches people that they can do whatever they want and you're just going to
take it out.
because they get their way. I think you need to be careful with the way that you word that. You can adjust the Constitution to fit the modern day society, but you, like Camille was saying, there's still back to basic ideas that you need to enforce. So I don't think we should advocate so much that, oh, they're not doing it right now, you might as well take it out. There's a certain analysis that has to be done of what should be taken out and what should remain and what needs to be added.
Okay.
Updated.
Or, yes,
Just take
updated.
it
So
out.
let's pinpoint some issues then. Okay. So, for example, we're updating the Constitution. We're the Constitutional Commission. Now, Stanton, we're going to come to an issue that's particular to you because we know that the report from the Constitutional Commission says that the disabled should not be a protected class. And you're visually impaired, so I want to hear your opinion on that. But, so we're the Constitutional Commission, and we're making changes. And we have gay citizens in our country. Because we can talk about gay, we can talk about drugs, we can
Immigrants.
talk about guns, we can talk about abortion. What were you saying?
Immigrants.
Immigrants.
Legal, that means every race.
I
So-
don't support that. I don't understand how people could be illegal, but somebody can explain that to me one day. Okay, so gay marriage. Do we allow, on some level, we're the Constitutional Commission, we're trying to figure out how to balance this Christian thing and this updating thing in this modern society. do we allow for these people to be protected with some form of rights?
Everyone deserves rights. Everyone, regardless of what religion, what ethnicity, regardless of sexual preference, everyone, every citizen of any country that they reside in deserves rights.
Okay,
Okay.
I have a pause. Isn't that still something coming from a Christian person? Think about it.
What are you saying?
If I was a Christian, or if I would, all right, say if I'm a Christian, would I say everyone deserve rights?
Yes.
Everyone
Okay.
do.
Yes.
What does that have to do?
It doesn't have to be
What
on
I mean?
religion. It has to be
Yeah.
on being a human,
Human
being.
being.
Yeah.
That everyone deserves rights.
Right.
It's not just a Christian thing.
Yeah. Because it isn't necessarily a Christian thing.
It's not.
Because Christians don't necessarily
Feel that
interest
everyone
themselves
should.
in everybody's business.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Not that
They
way.
don't.
No. I mean, if you do not accept Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, you're going to hell.
Burn, boy.
So, I mean, they're really on your run.
Yeah.
You going to hell. That's your deal. But as the managers of a constitutional commission, what is our responsibility?
We need
here?
to make that distinction, therefore, between what the Bible says and what is right as citizens, as human beings.
Yeah. And Stanton keeps going there, so let's go there. Stanton basically says church and state needs to divorce.
Separation
Yes.
of church and state.
Yes.
Is that an opinion that carries here?
Yes.
I feel Strap has an issue. Wesley.
You have
Strap
to
do.
consider the fact that also not every single household within the Bahamas is Christian.
Amen.
There are, believe it or not, people that just don't, they may not have a religion, but it's just not Christian.
Yeah.
And so they live, they might not say they're Muslim or anything of it,
It's not, but
but they're just not Christian.
Yeah, I understand they're not Christian. I understand that, but if we go back to our foundation, we're gonna move on to the future, right?
Mhm.
We have to look at our foundation, look at our beginning,
Yeah.
so we can move forward.
Mhm.
So
You
if
have
we
to know
take
it.
out our beginning or our foundation, how are we gonna have a future?
Well, can we really take it out though?
No.
I don't know that we can do that.
What is our foundation, in your opinion? What is our foundation?
And was our foundation stable? That's a question too.
That's a good question.
Because if it was questionable in the beginning, then it's
Yeah,
questionable.
maybe that's how we end up. And 40 years later, we don't own nothing in the country. All of us as workers and laborers under heavy debt. With 50% of the people graduating from school, maybe we shouldn't have been a Christian nation from the beginning. Perhaps that screwed us up. Is that possible?
That was a touchy thing to say.
yeah.
I'm just saying,
It's a
for
question.
some,
It's a question.
Mhm.
Perhaps being busy being Christians got in the way of us doing the business of the country. Perhaps. I just asking
It's
questions.
possible. That's why, once again, I say we need to, as human beings, make the discretion, use our discretion to look at the Christian values and our values as human beings. It's up to us. It's our responsibility to do that.
And that is, those two are different.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. We're going to take a break here, and we'll come right back. This conversation is going well, so we'll be back shortly. Citizens Review with all the smart people in the Bahamas. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Citizens Review. If you've seen the first segment, you saw my distinguished panel of parliamentarians, including a Governor Generaless. I don't even know if that's what you just call them, but it's a sexist term anyway, so we can forget that. But we're talking about constitutional reform. We're talking about the country issues, anything that comes to mind in the minds of these bright young people. So let's continue, and I want to start with Stanton Charlton. I like your name, so I'm going to say it. Stanton Charlton, disabilities. You are visually impaired, and you live in a country where the Constitutional Reform Commission released a report where they are not prepared to protect the disabled as a protected class. How do you feel about that?
I believe that's extremely disappointing. And basically, it's sending the message that the visually impaired are just not valuable enough to the Bahamas for it to be considered in the Constitution. And that's something that sets deep in my heart after living in this country for 17 years, my whole life now. So I have to ask the question, if you look at countries like, since we want to compare ourselves to America so often, if you look at America, how highly the disabled are catered to. How often do you go to a place of business in America and you don't see, for example, the parking for persons in wheelchairs,
Yeah.
for example? That's just common now. That's become commonplace. But here in the Bahamas, visually impaired and persons with other disabilities just aren't given the due credence, the due attention that I believe they deserve.
Yeah. And for example, in Canada, with education, if you suffer from any sort of disability, learning all the way to physical disabilities, you can be accompanied by someone to assist you with your studies, to go to class with you, to help you to study, to tutor you, all of these things. Whereas in the Bahamas, we're having a discussion about the disabled even being a protected class. Ladies and gentlemen, join in. What do you feel? Because I mean, I can tell you quite frankly, it pissed me off. I think my immediate thoughts were that this whole study has to be invalid. Because if you can't come to that conclusion, you have to be an idiot. And I know some of the people on the commission, and they just can't be sensible people, or they're incredibly irrelevant thinkers. So that's my bit for them. What do y'all think?
It hurts me to actually hear that they leave them out, because it don't matter what type of disability they have, they still have some form of common sense, and they should not be left out of anything. And Stanton is a prime example. He's visually impaired, but he stood in Parliament on Friday and he debated as any normal person in Parliament.
Quite well, actually.
And
he's quite
spoke,
good here.
He was one of the best speakers in my book.
Yeah.
And I think he's an example as when it comes to the disability of his people in his kind. And there's also a pre-vocational unit in Anatole Rogers where the students there have similar disabilities, but they graduate.
Yeah.
And some of them, it was one girl, they used to call her, I think, Lolo or Yo-Yo, one of the names. She graduated a year before me, and now she's working in one of the schools. Not the public school, I think one of the girls' industrial schools, one of those. And she's doing quite well.
Yeah.
Quite well. So I don't think the Constitution Commission should leave them out. They should include them in, because they are still human beings and citizens of this country.
And see, that's why you understand why I am so upset. In a nation where we preach equality, you are basically saying that they are second-class citizens in their own country.
Well, not just equality. And here comes this Christian thing again. Because that is, not protecting the disabled is nowhere near being Christian.
No, it's not.
So, like you were talking about, Strap, having the word Christian value in the Constitution is certainly not bounding us to anything. That ain't really getting us nowhere. It'd almost be better if we be objective and just say, should people be protected? Should people be treated equally? Yes. Because it's not happening. I don't see it happening. Mins, you made a comment earlier about culture and our mindset. Paige, you talked about our mentality. Let's talk about culture and mentality. Lead us off with whatever comments you have, whatever issues, ideas.
What I said earlier is that what I observe about Bahamian people is that we don't like change. And you yourself admitted that it's true.
Yeah.
I think majority of Bahamians know, whether they want to admit it themselves, they really should, that we're not fans of change. We're not fans of new things unless it's material things. And what I had said earlier is that we're like children with new toys. We want things and we play with them, and then we put them away. A new establishment, a new institution could come about, or a new business could come about. And for the first 3 months to, let's say, a year, we're interested in it. We jump on it, it's all we talk about, it's everywhere. Then after a while, it's like, no, it's old. Give me something else.
Yeah.
We want new things, and we like new things. What I also observe about Bahamians, and not even Bahamians, what you kind of observe about the world is that something is missing. It's like people go throughout their lives, they wake up, they go to work, they do this, they do that, and they come home.
Purpose.
It's just something is missing. And I don't want to stand here and say that I'm a person who when I wake up, I feed the homeless or I do everything else, but you know that there's something missing throughout the world and throughout the nation. And I think, as Gio was about to say, it affects the mindset of Bahamians. Because the mindset of Bahamians, the older generation, it somehow comes back to us, those younger. We are influenced by them and based on what they know and how they act.
Yeah.
And that's what I've observed, and I don't think it's something that's necessary. When we talk about bridge to the future, the journey continues.
Yeah.
It can't continue. Where did that come from if we are if we have this mindset where we don't want to change?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We don't want to come to grips or to come to realization that things can't stay the way they are, because obviously that's how we got here. That's how we complain that things aren't good, that something has to give.
Yeah. And I often argue that the bridge to the future that we're on is very circular, because it doesn't seem like we ever quite
going
get to
straight.
this future. We just, Paragraph's been selling us bridge for about 10 years now, and we just can't seem to cross. We may have to throw him over and walk on him to get across. But my question with that is, we've seen how difficult it is, though.
It is difficult.
Yeah, because we've just talked about making changes, and there's a struggle here about adjusting values and adjusting different sets of laws and all of that stuff. So we know that it's tough. We know that it's hard to do, but something I always ask people to look at, and because I always hear people say that change is difficult, and I always hear people say that there's a mindset issue in the Bahamas. But I think that there's a subliminal level on which Bahamians get certain things. So, for example, we had a referendum before this one where it was about the rights of women. But women voted against their own rights. And a lot of people said, oh, but that's crazy. Yeah. How could you do that? And then we had the gambling referendum, and people voted against it. And people say, well, why did you vote against, everybody gambling anyway. Why would you vote against it? But I don't think people looked at the longer pattern, which is sort of a disassociation with our politics more than these issues. So in '87, a lot of people tried to vote the PLP out, didn't work for whatever reason. Some people say they teethed the election, I don't know. In '92, an overwhelming majority said, boom, out. In '97, that majority again gave the F&M a bigger majority, because Pinling ran again. I mean, can you all wrap your heads around that? The fact that Pinling was in charge for 25 years and then he ran again. He was in charge from 1967 to 1992. And in 1997, 3 years before he died of cancer, he ran for office yet again, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. But Bahamians didn't respond to that. They voted him out. And then leading up to 2002, we have that referendum, women's rights, and a lot of other issues. People voted it down because Hubert Ingram said, who votes for this? Whoever wins this wins the election. And then he lost the election. Huge loss. The PLP sweeping win. Between 2002 and 2007, we have this huge, big blowout of economy and growth and all of that stuff. But in 2007, people still vote Ferguson and them out. And then in 2012, Ferguson voted back in.
It sounds to me like the Bahamian people are confused.
Or it could be that we're onto them. It could be that we've noticed that we cannot trust. And maybe we're not so much confused as we are aware of the fact that there is no one we can trust. So the only thing we've come up with is that we could move them. But that's not working anymore.
No.
Because we're running out of options. And not to forget the fact that the DNA got almost 13% of the vote, which is a lot.
Yeah.
In the Bahamas, that's
new party.
plenty. For a new party who, I mean, with a leader that most people weren't very convinced by,
You can see that we want to change.
we want something.
Yeah, we want
Something.
to change.
We want
Yeah.
change, but we
Don't.
want security.
Do we know how to get there?
We
Do we know how to get there? That's the thing. And we want, what kind of security though?
We just want to, we don't want to put all our eggs in one basket, for example, with the DNA. We want to know that there's some sort of familiarity or some sort of comfort in what you're doing.
Yeah.
So it's as though for us, we want the F&M to change. Because we know the F&M and we know how they are. We want them to change.
Yeah.
We don't want to necessarily completely switch over to a new party. We want the PLP, and we want them to change.
Yeah. But do we foresee that they will?
I don't think
That's
so.
the challenge.
Maybe we have hope that they will, even though in the back of our minds we know that they won't.
And there's no evidence. Because I mean, I can't see the evidence. Maybe people could have sold somebody on evidence before this new government came in. But I think now we're pretty much aware
Yeah.
there's no evidence. So what do? How do we achieve change then?
Give us a chance,
Who's us?
the youth.
Okay, how?
They
This is where the policy comes in, right? This is a national youth policy. We've articulated how you all need to protect us and give us a chance to participate in decision making.
Yes.
Boom, the policy.
They show majority of the Bahamians watched the debate on Friday, and they heard us stress this policy
Yeah,
over and over. Numerous of us stress this policy.
yeah,
So,
and the different parts of
and
it.
the different parts of it, and I think if they actually listened to some of us
Yeah,
and they heard about it,
yeah.
then give us a chance.
Mhm.
Let us be. Okay,
Give
let
some
us be,
advices.
Make an impact.
Yeah. and help me
But
out, guys.
seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like give,
Adding to what you said, I think giving us the chance is giving us the education. I am a firm believer in the fact that knowing the facts is not enough, because I myself have realized that knowing the facts is not enough. I need to have the skills to analyze the Constitution.
Yeah.
That's what they need to give us. They need to teach us the skills to analyze the Constitution, teach us the civics so we know what the Constitution is, first of all.
Who
and
the framers are.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
allow us to develop the ideas and the knowledge that we are able to change it, and we're able to just be the change and be the bridge to the future.
So the youth policy is basically asking for a legal framework by which to make demands that young people are protected.
It's a legally binding commitment
Yeah.
between the government and the youth.
Okay, to set up institutions, to give us better curriculum, to teach us how to critically think, to not,
To bring different
And
ideas to
also,
the table
yes,
that
to give us a
benefit the
say.
youth as well.
yeah.
Ideas that I guess you can say, solutions that would be on every committee in the Bahamas,
Yeah,
that there be at least one or two young persons
Yeah,
on that
present.
committee.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
and even in Parliament.
Mhm.
So that means that when decisions are made,
Mhm.
young people aren't forgotten.
yeah,
You don't have the government talking about anything, and it relates to the youth, but they don't include us.
yeah. Because, I mean, obviously, when they borrow all this money and all that, we got to pay it. Because the loans just go beyond 100 years sometimes. Okay. I like this idea, and especially what you talked about, Gia, where you said that if you can give me the Constitution, teach me how to analyze it.
Right.
Teach me how to understand it. Because there's a lot of memory work that goes on in our schools, but not so much critical analysis. And then there are a lot of people that are failed. There are a lot of people that don't graduate. Our graduation rate has to be somewhere around 50%, which is sickening.
48%.
But how would the youth policy prevent that? How would the youth policy help against that? How would the youth policy demand that that is fixed?
Let's not go there as yet, Mr.
Okay.
Ferguson.
Okay.
But no, it's not that. In the National Youth Policy documentary, you mentioned something that I found very interesting. Within the Bahamas, it doesn't seem to make sense where you have a school
Mhm.
where less than half of the children are graduating.
Yeah.
And you made a solution, I guess you can say, that the first failed school
Mhm.
will serve as a form of recognition to other schools that when you shut it down,
Yeah.
sorry,
Mhm.
that the first failed school should be shut down.
Yeah.
And then other schools realize, hey, we have to do something about it.
Mhm.
The second school will allow the second school to shut down that has children failing,
Mhm.
more less than 50% of their children graduating,
Yeah.
then it would serve as a purpose of action.
Mhm.
And you mentioned that the third school to be shut down due to the fact that their children aren't graduating
Yeah.
would be a result of the minister having to step down from his position.
Yeah.
Do you feel that that's what needs to happen?
I think the beauty of the youth policy, I think, is that it would provide, and that's what I heard when y'all articulated it in Parliament, is that it would provide the framework for solutions like that to come to the fore. It would provide youth the framework to demand the resignation of a Minister of Education who is not adjusting the curriculum, who is not teaching us civics, who's not teaching us the Constitution, who's not teaching us about the framers, who's not providing for a system that, as that legal agreement demands, protects young people and protects our future. So that's why I support the youth policy. That's why I think it's absolutely necessary, because like any parent, you should have a legal commitment to the child. And I think our government has gotten away by not having a legal commitment. So we need to put some teeth in the relationship. We need to put some words between us. We need to sign a contract with the negligent parents of the Bahamas who have treated young people like they don't exist, undereducated them, miseducated them, failed them in systems countless, and say, listen, you just can't, according to our agreement, mummy, you can't do that. According to our agreement, government, you're supposed to educate me. And so we gonna have a problem if you don't get there. According to our agreement, we're not supposed to be failing at a rate of half. So the graduation rate in this room is y'all three make it and us three don't. And that's a problem. And the us three usually look like us three. Yeah. And the y'all three usually look like y'all three. And one dude and two girls and three fellas over here trying to figure out what block we can chill on. So on that note, let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We have some sentiments from Lady Pinland. I want your comments. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Citizens Review. We're going to dive right into our discussion, but first I want to play a clip that is going to preface our discussion. I talked about this last week on my show. I want the opinion of thinking young people. Lady Penling spoke at a Rotary or Kiwanis Club, and she made these remarks.
Too many young people have betrayed the promise of independence and have taken many of the hard-fought freedoms by our forefathers for granted. There is too little value and respect placed on human life and the properties of our brothers and sisters. We must collectively address this social scourge with the same zeal and conviction, intolerance as we confronted discrimination and disenfranchisement.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, young people in the Bahamas have betrayed the promise of independence. What do you think?
My issue with the statement is it says that she said that we as young people have failed the promise of independence. But the fact that, one, I'm not necessarily sure what the promise of independence is representation of the fact that the generation before me or
Yeah.
the older generation has also failed the promise of independence in not teaching me what the promise of independence is and how I'm to go about fulfilling that promise and how I'm supposed to go about succeeding and not failing the promise of independence. So I think in making that statement, not only has she said that we have failed, but she's actually given light to the fact that she has failed and her generation has failed in teaching us the promise of independence.
Okay.
Wow.
Anybody else? That does it for me. You failed too. Yeah, but in that we all fail.
Yes, we all. She stressed a good point.
Yeah.
We all have failed. They failed. We failed because we didn't pay attention, and they failed because they didn't even teach it to us.
Yeah.
So it plays its part on both behalf because if you had done your part, then my part will be much easier.
Yeah.
And therefore, when it's my turn to teach the next generation after me,
You're critically
My
uninformed.
responsibility.
I have
Yeah.
a question. How can we fail if we were not taught
Yeah.
the promise? Or
Yeah, what could the promise of independence be? Given what we've talked about, I mean, given understanding that, at one point we were the #1 tourism destination in the world, but we own nothing in tourism.
That was
Like-
industry.
Huh?
That was on industry.
Yeah. What,
Okay.
so what is the promise of independence? I mean, y'all were all born into an education system that was graduating less than 40%. Y'all were all born into it. I was born a little bit before that, but y'all entered a system that was already failing.
Exactly.
So what is the promise of independence? And is it in fact a lie? Were we sold a story?
That we failed it?
No, that there was a promise. Was the promise a comfort to a fool?
Maybe we were supposed to create our own promise.
Are we working on that? That's what the youth policy is all about?
Well, we have to change the perspectives from which we are viewed.
Yeah,
So that's exactly what we're working on.
yeah. So you think young people have to basically come up with their own promise? We've been left out in the cold.
yes, I think we have to look back at our roots and look at now
Yeah,
to try and make our own decisions,
yeah,
our own way of thinking, our
Mhm.
own way of living. Because sometimes we're not being taught, but
Yeah.
we need to taught. We need to know to make the future brighter.
I often liken independence to the moment that when my father died. My father died about 4 years ago. And when as much as you're a man and you're big man, you can do it all, you can pay for your own stuff and you can handle yourself. When your father dies, there's like this unsheathing. Like all of a sudden you feel vulnerable to the whole world. And every time I see these institutions fail in the Bahamas, I get that same feeling. Like it's almost up to us to just figure this out because the old people are becoming irrelevant every single day. They can't even use basic technology that we thrive on. We have whole lives that they don't even understand, know about, they don't get that exist. The same people who framed the Constitutional Commission that don't think disabled people need to be protected think that the Senate should be a council of wise men. So they maintain the age discrimination over 30, saying that wise men and women. But in Silicon Valley, the average CEO is 27, but they're multi-billionaires. So I don't even know what a wise man is in the 21st century. But of course, they can tell us it's people over 30 and old people who know great things.
And that's 20th century thinking.
Exactly. It's 20th century thinking with a 19th century economy that is based on labor. So I always get this feeling that we got to do it all by ourselves.
It's a matter of no one's going to look out for us except for us.
Us.
yeah.
And the same thing goes with the policy. The policy is here, but it does not mean that as young people we throw it and hide.
Yeah.
The policy is something that all young people, we have to want it.
Yeah.
We have to fight for it,
Yeah.
we have to deserve it, and we have to protect it,
Yeah.
as with all other things. We can't sit here, I know it's in our right to sit here and say how they did nothing for us and how,
But that ain't get us.
but it's not
nowhere.
gonna get us anywhere. We can't just focus on the old and dwell on it and stay on it and complain about it. We
Yeah.
realized for so long that nothing is happening, just doing the same old thing.
Yeah.
Understand for ourselves.
So we now have to build for ourselves. We now have to make the policy for ourselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we have to present it for ourselves and stand up and fight for ourselves.
We have to be the bigger man
Yeah.
Yes.
and not slap them down while we are there. Okay, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. This has been good. I've had a wonderful time. This is Citizens Review with the youth parliamentarians. Introduce yourselves one more time really quickly so that people can know who you are.
Gia Page Souls.
Camille Mintz.
Stanton Charlton.
Wesley Strock.
Duran Sanders.
Ron Sanders. Good. Nice to meet you all. Had a good time. Appreciate you coming on.
Yes.
That's our show for this week. Thank you for watching Citizens Review. We are but dust, and to dust we shall return. So you might as well say what you got to say before you dead. We'll see you next week.